Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self normal? Like, come on guys, make sure to smash that like button. I could spend the whole intro talking about Robert Kiyosaki, but this book's contents are far more interesting to me at least than Robert Kiyosaki's life story, and that's because it simply contains presumably filtered insights from his life story that all fall under the same umbrella. The reasons for the long-term financial results of two men who treat and look at money very, very, very differently from each other. The only thing that they had in common was that they liked to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. The author had two fathers growing up because at the time in Hawaii, same-sex marriage wasn't only legal, but it was actually highly encouraged. And no, that's a lie. That's actually not at all what he meant. What would that have to do with financial, personal finance? When I looked at the title at first, I was like, I mean, that's cool. He had two dads. Nothing wrong with that. But like, if one of them was rich and one of them was poor, how'd they get along? His poor dad was his real dad. His rich dad was his best friend Mike's dad, who he and Mike worked for after school. As he grew up, he was constantly educated about money by these two dads, and the viewpoints between his poor dad and his rich dad were so extremely different from each other that he became very curious about why and spent most of his private time thinking about it. He noted that, it would have been a lot easier to just be like, I agree, or that makes sense. But this is something huge in the information age where you have so many different viewpoints everywhere that it is incredibly easy to find yourself questioning. I'm sure you probably experienced this before if you've gone as far as clicking on the link to this video, questioning things and wanting to learn more. The author decided to listen to his rich dad and follow that guy's path ultimately. And I feel weird saying ultimately because he made this decision in 1956 at the age of 9. The rich dad gave him 6 lessons that he sums up in the book. 6 lessons in personal finance that a 9-year-old understood. Maybe that's another reason this book is so accessible, but before we talk about those, I just wanted to get something out of the way. A lot of debt in the world, or at least the US, is occurring because very highly allegedly educated people were taught their occupations in an institution, but they were taught occupations, not how to manage money and accumulate wealth. And this includes banking. When's the last time a school specifically taught someone how to become rich? Someone said on Instagram that she was curious about this book, but she heard from other people that it was, there's a lot of gold in it, but it's kind of preachy and outdated, which I'll talk about later when we go over like a couple of the top helpful reviews on Audible that were like 1 star. In the meantime, let's talk about these lessons, shall we? Lesson number 1, the rich don't work for money. And the lessons, by the way, really are written in a way that a 9-year-old could understand. People work for money because of fear and desire. Even rich people do. But rich people have money work for them. And they do this first by making the decision to master and control fear and desire. I feel at least that the rich dad explained things in a way that makes sort of like an us versus them dichotomy. And there's a small chance that it may leave you with a bad taste in your mouth. You could easily wash that down with the brilliance inside this book as well, because I think it's far outweighed by that. Like, drastically. So much of it is, I can't disagree with it. I just can't. Something I learned from this book is that money is a universal system of value. And that value is in the eye of the beholder. We all value money in different ways for different reasons. Lesson 2 is the reason for teaching financial literacy. Ostensibly, poor people don't understand the difference between to the point where they apply it, the difference between an asset and a liability. One of them constantly makes you money and the other one constantly costs you money. But the main idea of this chapter is that it's not just about what you make, it's also about what you save. And the author also talks about why people typically ignore this and odds and ends. This helped me a lot after a couple years ago after I first listened to this book regarding spending money unnecessarily and to remember before you do that. Lesson number 3 is mind your own business. When I listened to this book at first, I didn't know what the author meant by this. It sounds like common sense on the surface, but what business you're supposed to mind, at least that I know of, is not specified simply by common sense. Common sense was never really my thing. I mean, I'm probably gonna be one of the first people in any random room to admit that a lot of common sense is not really something that I have. But by business, he means that, you know, we are constantly encouraged to study something and in turn become that in terms of occupation. And this is totally cool, but with an occupation, you're really only earning an income. It's an active income, and I think that's really the only value of it. With active income, as opposed to passive income, with active income, you have to trade your own time for money. With passive income, you put your own money into an asset, and you get more and more money as a return out of it. I mean, you basically make money. It's basically where you make money in your sleep. Investing in real estate are phenomenal examples of this. Most millionaires and billionaires, that's probably by far the biggest slice of the pie, come from investing in real estate. By business, the author means passive income. That's what you should really be mindful of, per se. Lesson 4 is the history of taxes and the power of corporation. This lesson, he talks about a lot of things. It's a whole package. Probably the most technical chapter of the book. I find it difficult to really briefly summarize, but I do find it notably intriguing. This is also the least preachy, if you will, and probably the most objective. I think a huge kind of pivot toward that objective way of looking at things takes place in this lesson. However, the majority of it is still talking somehow about how the rich get richer. Lesson 5 is that the rich invent money. There's a different sound to the author's speak on the importance of grit, for example, or saying to yourself, oh, it's an amazing time to be, because it is, an amazing time in human history to be alive right now. Mind you, this was the 90s. Think about how much of this has increased in magnitude since then. After you absorb these rich perspectives from these lessons so far, it has a very different sound to it. Lesson 6 is work to learn. What the author has to say about this can very well, I think, be summarized in So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. But Robert Kiyosaki stresses in this chapter about working to learn that it's better if you work on learning skills that can make you money than just working to make money. If you just work to make money and not specifically to improve valuable skills, Brian Tracy, I think, is the one who said that you are at all times one skill away from doubling your income. The author, for example, worked in sales for Xerox so he could learn persuasion and how to conquer the fear of failure and rejection, and left after he became, I think, like one of the top 5 salespeople in the country. And he also worked as a pilot in the industry so he could learn leadership principles in, drastic warlike circumstances. What do the negative reviews have to say? And by the way, there are like 2 other chapters. One of them is about overcoming obstacles and the other one is about getting started. Those are the ones that I think, in terms of, outdated, I think those are the ones that are most worth looking at and kind of taking them in with a grain of salt. More information regarding that, I'm gonna kind of close the review with. I found one review on Audible. It was actually the first one I saw, 1 star. And I'll just say that this person was angry and that I couldn't relate. What he or she was looking for just so happened to not be in the book. If you're looking for specific strategies, don't look here. This is for basics in personal finance, I would argue, and don't look here especially if they have to do with sales, negotiation, or creating capital. He tells stories, but the thing is, I like just specific strategies on it. I didn't see any of those here. You know what I mean? Even if I was listening with my ears. This person said that the author creates a false narrative of simplicity, all while speaking from a point of privilege. Telling people to jump off mountains. Why would you say that in a book? Without a parachute, because he did it while hovering above a security blanket. What security blanket? I didn't hear anything about a security blanket either. Creativity? Ambition? Resourcefulness? I found another review calling it outdated and ironic, also 1 star. Look guys, no one is perfect. Name one person. If you can do this, good for you and good for them. Name one person you greatly look up to who never at some point let you down or surprised you by doing or saying something that you did not expect. This person mentioned that the author's situation kind of went underground and they went bankrupt. If that happened and before improving it, while he was underground, he decided to write this book and put it out, that would be a different story. If the author's not doing so well, don't worry about him 23 years after the book is published. Him or Donald Trump, as an investor. Bottom line, I do think that the way this book talks about rich people and poor people, it's kind of elitist. I think that's inevitable given the situation that the author sort of presented us with in the beginning of the book. So I don't blame the author, but I do kind of blame his dads. How important, by the way, is it that his rich dad wasn't his biological dad? Does that even matter? Does that mean that he lied, or it was just like some sort of a figure of speech? There is a lot of gold in this book. This book has seriously changed a lot of lives. This book, I will say, has saved me. It's helped save me thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't even own a business. When there's controversy, there is a side of the story that is not being told. What I suggest is looking at both sides, considering both of them before continuing at the same time, not paralyzing yourself. This is a balancing act. It's one that I think I hope all of us are improving on. Am I the best at it? No, and I'm not sure who is, but I'm willing to gamble on the usefulness of it. I think that's a word, usefulness. The usefulness of it long term. I just invite you to do the same with me. Being broke is temporary. Being poor is eternal. Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, wake up. There's something I want you to learn. Life is sometimes tough when you do not fit the standard profile. I have friends who are geniuses, but they cannot communicate effectively with other human beings, and as a result, their earnings are pitiful. I have never met a golfer who has never lost a golf ball. I've never met people who have fallen in love, who have never had their heart broken, and I have never met a rich person who hasn't lost a lot of money. Cynics criticize, winners analyze. God does not need to receive, but humans do need to give. Direction 1. I recommend this book for literally anyone who is interested in personal finance and has not checked it out yet. I think this book is an essential for personal finance. I think those things about the rich dad and the poor dad and the elitist mentality, I think that is definitely worth keeping in mind, as well as the whole going underground and situation. And this book was written over 20 years ago. I think that's also worth keeping in mind as well, so that you do not leave yourself too open to potential traps that can get in the way of your thinking. Direction 2. If you like this book, check out Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant, also by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a really good book. I was surprised at how different it was from this one, and at the same time, just how amazing it was. That and Unshakable by Tony Robbins. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe, but if you have subscribed and you want to turn up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.